The bridge hummed with energy, its shimmering surface suspended between two worlds. On one side stood humanity's last bastion, an orbital megacity orbiting Epsilon Eridani Prime, where the air was filtered, the water recycled, and emotions compressed under the weight of survival. On the other side, the unearthly expanse of the Atari embassy loomed like a living cathedral, its walls pulsating with bioluminescent patterns that spoke in languages too complex for human understanding. In the center, I stood alone. My hands trembled, gripping a single data pad encoded with a message that could reshape the fragile alliance between humans and the Atari. The faces of the delegation behind me burned in my memory. General Lai, her jaw tight with disapproval. Ambassador Kane, whose carefully crafted words had earned this fleeting peace. And, of course, Commander Mallory, whose whispered warning before I stepped onto the bridge haunted me still. They'll destroy us, Emma. They don't think like we do. They don't love like we do. Walk away. But he didn't know what I knew. He didn't know him. Beyond the threshold, Lyris waited. He stood taller than any human, his elongated frame encased in armor of translucent crystal that shimmered like liquid fire. His eyes, twin orbs of shifting colors, held a depth I'd never seen in another living being. When he'd first spoken to me through the universal translator, his voice had been like music, each word a chord that resonated in my chest. But it was his unspoken words, his gestures, the slight tilts of his head, the way he lowered his gaze when he thought of his homeworld's loss, that had drawn me in. The bridge wasn't just a structure. It was a metaphor, a boundary, a barrier, and tonight I would choose whether to cross it forever. The first time I met Lyris was a year ago, during the initial talks of the Eridani Accord. The Atari had arrived in their bioships, offering technology beyond our wildest dreams in exchange for resources we took for granted. Iron, silica, water. Humanity, battered by centuries of conflict and environmental collapse, had accepted. The delegation was small, 2 representatives of the Atari and 6 humans, including myself, a xenolinguist tasked with deciphering their tonal language. The negotiations were tense, teetering between collaboration and outright hostility. But amidst the tension, Lyris had been different, patient, kind. When I stumbled over my translations, his lips curved in what could only be described as a smile, a universal gesture that needed no explanation. "Your tongue struggles," he had said softly, the translator rendering his voice with its characteristic metallic lilt. "But your heart does not. That is rare among your kind." I'd laughed, nervous but flattered. "You're saying humans aren't known for their hearts." "Not among the stars," he replied, his gaze distant. "But perhaps you'll change that." In that moment, something shifted. A fragile thread of connection was woven between us. And as the weeks turned to months, that thread became a tether, pulling me into his world even as my own people tried to warn me away. Now, the data pad in my hand contained humanity's ultimatum. The Atari were demanding a permanent foothold on Eridani Prime, something that would grant them unprecedented influence. In return, they offered terraforming technology capable of restoring Earth itself. It was a devil's bargain, and the Council had decided it was too great a risk. My task was simple: deliver the rejection. But nothing about this felt simple, not when it meant severing the only bond I'd ever felt truly alive in. As I stepped across the bridge, the air grew warmer, heavier. The light from the embassy danced across my skin, painting me in hues of gold and violet. Lyris emerged from the shadows, his crystalline armor refracting the light into 1,000 shimmering fragments. "You came," he said, his voice like a song. "I had to," I replied, my voice barely audible. I extended the data pad. This is their answer. He didn't take it. Instead, he studied me, his expression unreadable. And what is your answer, Emma? The question hung between us, more dangerous than any weapon. My heart raced as I realized what he was asking, not just about the Accord, but about us, about the impossible choice I would have to make. Behind me, the distant murmur of my delegation's voices called me back to the safety of my own kind. Before me, Lyris stood as a symbol of everything unknown, everything forbidden. And in that moment, I realized the truth. I wasn't afraid of him or his people. I was afraid of what loving him would mean for my humanity. But even as the fear threatened to overwhelm me, I knew my decision had already been made. Chapter 1. The Bridge Beyond. The moment my fingers slipped from the data pad, my fate was sealed. It fell with a soft clatter onto the glowing surface of the bridge, untouched by Lyris. His gaze never left mine, twin orbs of swirling colors searching my face, as though he could read the conflict carved into every line. "I am not here for them," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of the words. "I'm here for you." Behind me, the faint echoes of my delegation's voices turned sharp, urgent calls laced with disbelief. They must have seen my hesitation, must have realized what my faltering step toward the Atari side of the bridge meant. My earpiece crackled to life. "Emma, stops!" Commander Mallory's voice barked, low and commanding. "Do not take another step. That's an order." I reached up and yanked the device from my ear, letting it fall to the bridge where it joined the abandoned data pad. The silence that followed was deafening, save for the gentle hum of the bridge beneath my feet. Lyris's expression softened, and for a moment, I thought I saw something human in his alien features. A flicker of hope. "You would forsake them?" he asked, his voice low and resonant. "Your people, your world, for me." The question cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to say no, that this wasn't about betrayal or abandonment, but the truth was murkier than that. My heart was tangled in a web of contradictions. Loyalty to humanity on one side, and the undeniable pull of something greater, something infinite, on the other. "I would," I said at last, the words as fragile as glass, "because I know what this alliance means. To them, you're a threat. But to me, you're everything." The Atari embassy was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The air was thick with a sweet, heady scent that clung to my senses, and the walls pulsed softly with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to react to my presence. As I stepped across the threshold, the warmth of the bridge gave way to a deeper, more intimate kind of heat, a sensation that felt almost like a living thing wrapping around me. Lyris walked beside me, his movements fluid and silent. His crystalline armor had shifted, retreating into his body with an almost organic grace, leaving behind a lithe, elongated form covered in iridescent, scaled patterns. The translator clipped to my wrist struggled to keep up with his words as he spoke. "You are not what I expected," he said, his tone contemplative. "Humanity clings so fiercely to its fear. And yet, here you are." "I wasn't always like this," I admitted, my eyes drawn to the intricate patterns weaving across the walls. "I used to believe in the mission, in humanity's survival above all else. But meeting you, I trailed off, unsure of how to put the enormity of it into words. You changed me." He stopped, turning to face me. "And you, Emma Thorne, have changed me. Do you know how rare that is? For an Atari to feel as I do." I shook my head, my breath catching as his hand, elegant and alien, reached out to trace the line of my jaw. The touch was warm, almost electric, and it sent a shiver down my spine. In our language, he continued, his voice almost a whisper, there is a word, Kedar. It means the moment when two become one, transcending all barriers. I have felt it only once before. With you. I stared at him, the weight of his confession sinking in. Kedar. The word hummed in my mind, more than a sound. It was a concept, a truth that resonated with something primal within me. And yet, a flicker of doubt remained. What happens now? I asked, my voice barely audible. The answer came in the form of chaos. A deafening crack split the air as a bright flash erupted from the bridge behind us. I turned just in time to see a squad of human soldiers storming across, their armor glinting in the dim light of the embassy. At their head was Commander Mallory, his face a mask of grim determination. "Emma!" he shouted, his rifle raised. "Get away from him now. You don't know what you're doing." Lyris stepped in front of me, his form towering and unyielding. A soft, melodic hum emanated from his body as the bioluminescent walls around us brightened, responding to his presence. "She is here of her own will," Lyris said, his voice calm but commanding. "You will not take her." Mallory's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what's at stake here. That thing isn't capable of what you think it is, Emma. It's using you, manipulating you. They all are." I stepped forward, my hands raised. "Stop. This isn't what you think. Lyris isn't a threat. He's the reason we've even made it this far with the Accord. If you fire on him, you'll destroy everything we've built. Everything we've built is already in jeopardy." Mallory barked. His rifle steadied, the barrel aimed squarely at Lyris. "This is your last chance, Emma. Come back with us, or you'll be declared a traitor. You know what that means." I hesitated, my heart pounding. Behind Mallory, the soldiers fanned out, their weapons trained on Lyris. The embassy seemed to react to the tension, its walls darkening, the pulsing patterns shifting to sharp, jagged forms. "Emma," Lyris said softly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "The choice is yours. But know this. If you stay, there will be no turning back. Not for you. Not for us." The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. Behind me, the life I'd always known, a life of duty, loyalty, and humanity, waited for me to return. Before me, the unknown stretched wide and terrifying, promising both wonder and peril. "I've already made my choice," I whispered. Chapter 2. No Turning Back. The silence before the first shot felt like an eternity. My words still hung in the air, fragile, trembling, and irreversible. Mallory's face twisted into something unreadable, part fury, part desperation, and a flicker of something that might have been grief. "Stand down!" I screamed, stepping in front of Lyris. "If you fire, you'll kill me too." "Damn it, Emma!" Mallory roared. His rifle wavered but didn't lower. Behind him, the other soldiers held their ground, their stances rigid with training but edged with unease. They were following orders, yes, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't want this. None of us had signed up for a war that felt more personal than political. Lyris's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, steadying me. His touch was a grounding force, calm amidst the storm. "Your people do not trust what they cannot control," he said softly, his gaze locked on Mallory. "But their fear will destroy them faster than I ever could." "That's rich, coming from you," Mallory spat. "You don't know what we've been through, what we've sacrificed just to survive. And now you're asking us to risk everything for her." He jabbed the barrel of his rifle toward me, the gesture sharp and cutting. "You're using her, twisting her mind. I won't let it happen." I stepped closer, my body shielded by Lyris's towering form. "You're wrong," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "This is my choice." He didn't force me into anything. Mallory's laugh was bitter and raw. "Choice? You think this is about love, Emma? You're risking humanity. They don't think like we do. They don't feel like we do. Whatever you think this is, it's not real." "It is real," I shot back, my voice rising. "More real than anything I've ever felt. And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't know me as well as you think." Mallory's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the rifle. I saw it then. The lines etched into his face, the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. He wasn't just my commander. He'd been my friend, my mentor. And now I was breaking his heart. "This is bigger than you," he said, his voice quieter now. "Bigger than both of you. Walk away, Emma. Please." Before I could answer, the embassy itself reacted. The walls pulsed violently, a warning rhythm that resonated deep in my chest. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lyris straightened, his crystalline body glowing faintly. "They are coming," he said, his tone grim. "Your people will not wait for negotiations. They mean to destroy this place." "What?" My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. The Council wouldn't." "They've already deployed orbital strikes," Lyris interrupted. "They see this embassy as a threat. And now they will act." Mallory froze, his rifle lowering as the realization sank in. "No," he muttered. "The Council wouldn't authorize that. Not without." "They already have," Lyris said. "You know it, Commander. Humanity cannot tolerate what it cannot control." The hum grew louder, a deep vibration that rattled the floor beneath us. A flicker of light outside the embassy caught my eye. Streaks of fire raining down from the heavens. Orbital strikes. The Council wasn't bluffing. Mallory turned to his squad, his voice sharp and commanding. "Fall back. Get to the extraction point now." The soldiers hesitated, their eyes darting between him and me. "Now, damn it!" They obeyed, retreating toward the bridge in quick, disciplined strides. Mallory lingered, his eyes locking with mine one last time. "You don't have to do this," he said, almost pleading. "Come with us. There's still time." "There's not," I whispered. "Go." The moment Mallory disappeared across the bridge, Lyris moved. His hand tightened around mine, pulling me deeper into the embassy. The walls shifted around us, forming a protective cocoon of light and sound. I struggled to keep up, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "What's happening?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "What are you doing?" "Protecting you," he replied. "The embassy is alive, Emma. It will shield us, but only if we reach its core." I followed him through winding corridors, the bioluminescent patterns growing brighter and more frantic with each step. The ground beneath my feet trembled as the first orbital strike hit. The shockwave rippled through the embassy, sending me stumbling into Lyris's side. "They won't stop until this place is ash," I said, fear clawing at my chest. "Lyris, they'll destroy everything." "Not everything," he said, his voice steady. "They cannot destroy KHR, not if we hold on to it." We reached the core of the embassy, a vast, domed chamber bathed in golden light. At its center stood an intricate structure, a swirling vortex of energy suspended in midair. It pulsed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, drawing me closer with an almost magnetic pull. "What is this?" I asked, staring in awe. "The embassy's heart," Lyris said. "A nexus of energy that connects us to the greater Atari network. If we bond here, our connection will transcend the physical. Your humanity, my Atari essence. We will become something new." The implications hit me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about love or survival. This was about transformation, about leaving behind everything I'd ever known to embrace, something I couldn't fully understand. "Will it stop the strikes?" I asked, my voice shaking. "No," he admitted, "but it will ensure our survival." Together, I hesitated, my mind racing. The embassy trembled again, another strike landing dangerously close. Time was running out. "What happens to me?" I asked. "If I do this, will I still be human?" Lyris stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "You will be more. You will be KHR. But you must decide now, Emma. The choice is yours." The walls around us shuddered, fragments of light and sound fracturing in chaotic patterns. My heart pounded as I looked at Lyris, at the vortex, at the crumbling remains of everything I thought I understood. And then I stepped forward. Chapter 3. Becoming Something More. The vortex's energy rippled around me as I stepped closer, its warmth wrapping me in a cocoon of light. The golden tendrils reached out like living things, brushing against my skin, my thoughts, my very soul. Every nerve in my body screamed with both fear and exhilaration as I turned back to Lyris, who watched me with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "Emma," he said, his voice softer now, almost tender. "This will change everything. Once the bond is complete, there will be no going back. To your people, to your old life. But you will not face it alone. Do you trust me?" The question lingered in the air, weighted with meaning. The ground beneath my feet trembled as another orbital strike slammed into the embassy, the shockwave sending a cascade of glowing debris from the domed ceiling. My heart raced, but my answer was clear. "I trust you," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. Lyris reached out his hand, his elongated fingers shimmering as the vortex's light reflected off his crystalline skin. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before placing my hand in his. The warmth of his touch was almost overwhelming, a blend of comfort and power that coursed through me like an electric current. The vortex reacted immediately. It surged, a brilliant eruption of light and sound that engulfed us both. The energy was alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched not just my heartbeat, but something deeper, something universal. My vision blurred as the light consumed everything, erasing the world around me. For a moment, there was nothing, just a void of silence and weightlessness, as if I'd been untethered from reality itself. And then I heard his voice, not through the translator, but directly in my mind. "Emma, do you feel it?" I gasped, the connection sparking to life within me. It wasn't just his voice. It was his thoughts, his emotions, his essence intertwining with mine. I felt his grief for the loss of his homeworld, his hope for a future where our peoples could coexist, his love for me, a love so vast and unyielding it took my breath away. "Yes," I whispered, though the words were unnecessary. He could feel my answer as clearly as I could feel his presence. "I feel everything." The transformation began in earnest. The light of the vortex surged, seeping into my skin, my mind, my very being. It wasn't painful. If anything, it was freeing, like shedding a heavy, suffocating shell. Memories and sensations flooded my mind, not just my own but his as well. I saw the Atari homeworld as it once was, its skies alive with iridescent clouds, its cities crafted from living crystal. I felt the devastation of its loss, the pain of exile, and the quiet resilience that had kept Lyris moving forward. But I also saw myself through his eyes, fragile, determined, and endlessly fascinating. To him, I was the embodiment of humanity's potential, a beacon of hope in a universe that had long since abandoned it. When the light finally faded, I collapsed to my knees, my body trembling with the aftershocks of the transformation. The air felt different, thicker, richer, alive with energy I could now sense as clearly as I could feel my own heartbeat. I looked down at my hands, which now glimmered faintly with a translucent sheen, the same crystalline patterns that adorned Lyris's form spreading across my skin. I was no longer entirely human, but I wasn't Atari either. I was something new, something more. Lyris knelt beside me, his expression a mixture of awe and relief. "You did it," he said, his voice resonating with pride. "You crossed the threshold." My voice faltered as I struggled to process the enormity of what had just happened. "I don't feel like myself anymore." "You are still you," Lyris assured me. "But now, you are also KHR. Our bond is complete. What was once separate is now one." Before I could respond, the embassy shuddered violently, a deep, resonating groan that signaled the structure's imminent collapse. The strikes were coming faster now, their destructive force growing with each impact. Lyris stood, his hand extended to me. "We must leave," he said. "The embassy cannot sustain us much longer." The journey out was a blur. The corridors that had once pulsed with vibrant patterns were now dark and fragmented, the living structure struggling to maintain its integrity. Lyris led the way, his movements swift and purposeful, while I followed, still grappling with the changes in my body and mind. When we emerged onto the bridge, the sight that greeted us was one of devastation. The human strike fleet hung ominously in the sky, their weapons trained on the smoldering ruins of the embassy. Fires burned across the landscape, casting an eerie glow against the night. My chest tightened at the sight, not just from grief, but from something new. I could feel the pain of the embassy itself, a living being reduced to ashes. Mallory stood at the far end of the bridge, flanked by his soldiers. His rifle hung at his side, his expression one of shock as he took in my altered appearance. "Emma," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what have you done?" I stepped forward, my movements graceful and unearthly. The bond with Lyris had given me a new awareness, a connection to the world around me that I couldn't begin to describe. I could feel the fear radiating from Mallory, the confusion from his soldiers, the faint echo of hope buried beneath their disbelief. "I chose," I said simply, my voice carrying a resonance that wasn't entirely my own. "I chose love over fear. I chose to become something better." The final strike came without warning. A blinding flash lit up the sky, followed by a deafening roar that shook the ground beneath us. Lyris moved instinctively, his arms wrapping around me as a protective shield of energy erupted from his body. The force of the blast washed over us, the bridge crumbling under its intensity. When the dust settled, the strike fleet was gone, leaving behind a scarred and silent landscape. The embassy was no more, its ruins smoldering in the distance. But we were alive, together. Mallory and his soldiers stood motionless, their weapons lowered. He looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and resignation. "You've changed," he said. "I don't even know who you are anymore." "I'm still me," I replied, though I wasn't sure if that was entirely true. "But I'm also something new, something that might save us all." Mallory didn't answer. He simply turned and walked away, his soldiers following in silence. I watched them go, a bittersweet ache settling in my chest. As Lyris and I stood amidst the wreckage, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. The light felt different now, warmer, brighter, filled with a promise I hadn't noticed before. For the first time, I didn't feel torn between two worlds. I had found my place in the space between them. I chose love, I said softly, turning to Lyris. And I don't regret it. Neither do I, he replied, his hand intertwining with mine. This is only the beginning. Together, we stepped into the light, leaving behind the ashes of the past to forge a future no one had dared to imagine.